Musk suspends Yale University Ukrainian children abducted by Russia search program. And Voice of America, just by the way. I mean, why not? It's just 83 years of freedom. So let us talk about that a bit. Also, we talk about Steve Witkoff. Whether you waited for Putin for 8 hours, or maybe 9 hours, or maybe not, let's find out. And a Blitz interview with someone who I really respect, editor of the Ukrainian Alert blog at the Eurasia Center of Atlantic Council and the publisher of Business Ukraine and Lviv Today magazines, Mr. Peter Dickinson is with us at UATV English. So good afternoon, my name is Henry Keane and we are exactly UATV English, an English-speaking Ukrainian state media in constant persuasion to deliver hard truth in easy terms for the whole free world, directly from Ukraine. Remember, in March 2023, the International Criminal Court issued an arrest warrant for Russian dictator Vladimir Putin. And not only for him, and Children's Rights Commissioner Maria Lvova-Belova over the deportation of Ukrainian children from the occupied territories of Ukraine to Russia. Remember that? Well, Putin is indicted by ICC exactly for that. ICC considers Putin genocide in Ukraine. But Elon Musk does not. Elon Musk's large-scale cuts to funding in the US government have suspended the work of a Yale University team that helped rescue hundreds of Ukrainian children abducted by Russia. Until now, the US government had funded a group of researchers from Yale University's Humanitarian Research Lab who used open-source technologies to track missing children and shared their findings with Ukrainian authorities, of course, to help bring children back home. Hundreds of children were rescued thanks to their efforts. But now this work will cease due to Musk's recent efforts, federal funding cuts. Nearly 20,000 children have been abducted by Russia since the beginning of the full-scale invasion in 2022. But America first, right? First, from which side exactly? As on Saturday, March 15th, Crystal G. Thomas, Director, Office of Human Resources, U.S. Agency of Global Media, USAGM, issued an email to all the employees of Voice of America announcing they were placed under administrative leave. As a consequence, all permanent staff, including agency leaders, must cease working immediately, which means the de facto stop of news production. Reporters Without Borders, RSF, condemns the decision as a departure from the US historic role as a defender of free information and calls on the US government to restore Voice of America and urges Congress and the international community to take action against the unprecedented move. As this decision also endangers USGM journalists currently working abroad or even detained for carrying out their work.
Reporters Without Borders expresses deep concern over this decision from the Trump administration, a move that threatens press freedom worldwide and negates 80 years of American history in supporting a free flow of information. RSF calls on the U.S. government to immediately respect the autonomy of VOA as an independent news organization and to cancel this decision. Furthermore, RSF urges Congress and international stakeholders to mobilize against this fateful move. RSF stands in solidarity with VOA's employees and is worried for the 10 employees of USAGM currently detained abroad for doing their work, producing journalism. Thibaut Brutin, General Director, RSF.
Voice of America is one of the international broadcasting state media networks funded by the federal government of the United States of America. It is the largest and the oldest of the U.S. international broadcasters. Founded in 1942, Voice of America produces digital TV and radio content in 47 languages, produced for audiences outside the U.S. borders. Some staffers of USAGM are currently detained abroad, and Reporters Without Borders is still trying to confirm details of how these personal decisions will impact the status of these jailed journalists. But my suggestion is that how about we all, as the world's community, just impeach Trump and Musk, put him away, then put Zelensky for American presidency, and then detain Trump and Musk. So UATV English and me can interview them and ask them what actually was their initial plan and why exactly it somehow correlates on some 100% with Putin's. US President Donald Trump on March 15th denied reports that his special envoy, Steve Witkoff, had waited for hours for a meeting with Soviet dictator Vladimir Putin in Moscow. Sky News reported on that on March 14th, citing footage that Witkoff had waited at least 8 hours for Vladimir Putin while the Russian Tsar was meeting a Belarusian one, Alexander Lukashenko, in what appeared to be just a classic power play. Witkoff paid a visit to Moscow on March 13th for talks on 30-day ceasefire proposal that Ukraine had accepted previously after US-Ukrainian meeting in Saudi Arabia on March 11th. Then Trump reacted. The fake news, as usual, is at it again. Why can't they be honest just for once, asked Trump, and says, last night I read that Putin kept my highly respected ambassador and special envoy Steve Witkoff waiting for over 9 hours when in fact there was no wait whatsoever, end of quote. Trump then attacked the media that reported the story, saying that their purpose is to, I quote, demean and calling them, I quote again, sick degenerates, end of quote. He claimed that other meetings with other representatives of Russia did take place, and obviously they took some time, but they were very productive, as Trump puts it. From there, things went quickly and efficiently, and all signs seem to me hopefully very good, Trump adds. Putin adds that on March 13 that Russia was ready to agree to the US-backed 30-day-long ceasefire in Ukraine, and followed by a number of demands, like more territories, a ban on Ukrainian mobilization, or training of troops, and a halt on Western military aid for Kiev, and maybe first night's right for Putin for all beautiful Ukrainian women, I don't know, and whatever the hell Russian Tsar wants. Talks on a potential ceasefire comes as Trump pushes for a rushed peace deal to end the war at any cost, keeping European and Ukrainian officials, shall I put it, on alert, shall I say? No. Let's put it straightforward. We are stabbed in our backs. All right, Peter Dickinson, editor of the Ukraine Alert blog and Eurasia Center of Atlantic Council and the publisher of Business Ukraine and Lviv Today magazines. Hello, Peter. Nice to have you back.
Hi, thanks for having me. My pleasure to join you.
Right, well, the pleasure is all mine. Well, the first question, Voice of America shutdown. As a journalist, what is your, personal attitude to what's going on? Are we on the verge of a new American reality with tyranny looming on the horizon? Maybe.
No, I wouldn't say tyranny, but certainly it's a new America. Yes, it's clearly American foreign policy is changing dramatically. We're seeing historic changes to America's foreign policy, and I think the silencing of the voice of America is a very powerful metaphor for that. Voice of America for, maybe 80 years now has been a symbol of America around the world, of American soft power influence, and also of the values that America represents. And so, by silencing the voice of America, by silencing that voice, we're seeing a clear move beyond, away from those values, away from that era. And this is clearly no mistake. This is no mere administrative process. This is a very specific policy being adopted by the Trump administration, being spearheaded by Elon Musk, to get rid of this institution, the Voice of America institution, the Radio Free Europe, and to look for a new America, a new American role in the world.
Yeah, well, you just said specific policies spearheaded by Elon Musk. What kind of a policy is that? To do what exactly? Okay, shut down the Voice of America. Like you said perfectly. This is a perfect metaphor, silence. Now what? Or better asked, what then?
Well, America under Trump seems to be moving towards a transactional worldview. They don't want to be seen as promoting democracy or the values of individual human rights and liberty, as has been the case for the last 80 years. Now America is all about business, making things work. They don't want to interfere in other regions of the world if they can avoid it. They want to have a level playing field where they can do business and where they can develop strong economic policies for the benefit of the American people. So we're seeing a world order, a multipolar world order emerge, with America as one of those poles, of course, but also America would like to see Russia emerge as one of those poles, to be one of those central pillars of this new world order, and also the Chinese, of course. So it's
Right.
a very
By the way.
different world to the one we're used to during the Cold War and in the 35-year period, a 34-year period after the Cold War, where there was a very clear ethical component to America's global policies. Although, of course, many would be cynical about the level to which America lived up to those ethics or those morals. But that was always a very much a part of it, a part of America's global appeal, global policy, and things like Voice of America, Radio Free Europe were very much part of that. USAID, a huge part of that. Now America's saying, we're going to step away from all that. We just want to do business.
I mean, nothing personal, right? Just business. Is that the new motto on the coat of arms of America? All right. Well, Voice of America shut down. Okay, move transaction to a new multipolar world. Ukrainian children tracking program from Yale University. I mean, the same speedy approach to a possible ceasefire and possible peace that highly likely is quite impossible peace for Ukraine. Is there anything Ukraine can do about it?
Well, the closure of this Yale unit that was involved in tracking and monitoring the mass abduction of Ukrainian children is a separate issue to the USAID and the Voice of America issues we've just discussed. This is really all about avoiding upsetting Russia. America's policy now is very clearly, we want to avoid aggravating Russia. We want to make friends with Russia, and certainly we want to move away from the confrontational language which we've seen over the last more than 3 years now. The Trump administration believes that it's counterproductive. They want to have a much more productive relationship with Russia, and they're ready to forego any sort of justice for the war crimes that Russia have committed. So Putin personally is very, very embarrassed about the abduction of the children, not because of the crime that's committed. He's happy, he's fine with that. He's fine with one would assume, or we're led to believe by his actions, that he's totally comfortable with the war crime Russia is committing in Ukraine. But he's very uncomfortable about the fact that he has had a warrant issued for his arrest for war crimes by the International Criminal Court in The Hague, specifically in relation to these mass abductions of Ukrainian children. So America clearly is looking to try and avoid these kind of very upsetting issues with Putin and saying, well, we're not going to support that. America can't legitimately come out and say, we're comfortable with the mass abduction of children. The American public would not be accepting of such complete disregard for morality. But the American government under Trump seems to be looking to say, okay, well, you know what? We're not going to pursue that. We're not going to finance the pursuit of Putin specifically for the crime of the mass abduction of children, which is an act of genocide, by the way.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So they are looking to step back. We saw this at the United Nations as well, where the Americans voted with the Russians against against Ukraine and against all of America's traditional European allies. And they justified that by saying, we didn't want to aggravate Russia. We didn't want to have any language that was blaming Russia. We wanted just to say, our goal is to end the war. We're not interested in allocating blame here. We're not interested in justice, essentially. We want peace without justice.
Great. Nicely put. I mean, and actually peace without justice is a complete disregard for morality. I mean, it looks to me at least. But anyway, let's slide to another question. If there is a deal, if there is a ceasefire, what could be a sort of a security guarantee for Ukraine, you think, if this is not NATO?
Well, I think we need to be realistic here. We're in a new era. We're moving into a new era, and it's an era without security guarantees. And that applies not only to Ukraine, that applies to everybody. So in all fairness today, if Russia were to launch some sort of a provocation, let's say in Estonia or Latvia or on the Finnish border, would America respond by living up to its commitments under NATO's Article 5 of collective security? I think that's very unlikely, and I would imagine that that most Europeans would share my skepticism. So what I mean is, Trump, within less than 2 months, has effectively brought us into a new era, again, a multipolar era, where there's no longer any security guarantees for anyone. The only real security guarantee in town for the last, for decades and decades has been NATO. Now, NATO, of course, still exists. It's still a very, very significant and influential alliance. But is it a guarantee anymore? I would say no. And if the proof of the pudding is the actions of the Europeans. We're seeing now Europe is scrambling like never before to rearm. Is talking about setting up an independent security network. They're doing that because they know no one's to come out and say NATO's dead. No one's going to say that yet because they don't want to rush. They need to buy time. But they're clearly acting in a way that suggests they no longer have any faith in America's security guarantees.
Exactly. I mean, that makes sense.
Sorry, just to answer your question specifically, what does that mean? What does that mean for Ukraine? I think it means for Ukraine that Ukraine's security guarantee is the Ukrainian army looking ahead. So what Ukraine needs to do as a priority is to make sure that the Ukrainian army is at the absolute heart of Europe's future security, and it has a good chance to do that because it is the best. It is the best military in Europe. It has the best fight. It is the best fighting force in Europe. Has the best awareness and experience of modern warfare, and it is on the front lines with the only obvious enemy for Europe, which is Russia. So Ukraine needs to make sure that it is a very heavily militarized country going forward with a very modern, well-funded army, and that it has the full support of Europe, as much of Europe as possible. And it is literally the key player in this new European security architecture. That's about as much of a security guarantee as Ukraine can get. But if they do it right, it'll be a very serious guarantee.
Thank you so very much for this answer. I mean, I like the Ursula von der Leyen. She said, if I'm not mistaken, the saying was, let's make a steel porcupine out of Ukraine. Sounds nice, isn't it? I mean, yeah. The last question for tonight. What happens? What do you think will happen if Ukraine does not accept a ceasefire deal that is coming from Russia and a deal that is forced upon us in Ukraine, me and you and everyone else is here? What happens then?
Well, I think that it'll be very difficult to force something on Ukraine that is detrimental for Ukraine's national that threatens Ukraine's existence as a state. Ukraine's been very clear about that, and so have the European nations. And even America would find that difficult. I mean, clearly, Russia's goal has not changed. Russia's goal is the destruction of Ukraine. I think that's clear to everybody. That's certainly clear to the Ukrainians, and I think to most people, certainly a growing number of leaders in Europe itself. So they understand Russia's going to continue pursuing that goal, this historic mission that Putin is set on. And they will try to pursue that through some sort of ceasefire or peace negotiations. Now, we see very clearly, again this week, Putin talking about no Western supplies for Ukraine, no Western military support for Ukraine, essentially trying to isolate. Putin wants Ukraine to be disarmed and demilitarized and isolated. Now, we all know why that is. There's only one reason why he would want to have that. He wants to have Ukraine at his mercy so he can subjugate Ukraine. That's clear. We understand what Mr. Putin wants, and frankly, it's good that he's so obvious. It's good that he's so blatant in his demands because it makes life a lot easier for Ukraine's negotiators. So I don't think we're going to be in a position where the Americans and the Europeans together gang up on Ukraine and force Ukraine into an agreement where they have to basically capitulate and say, okay, we're not going to exist anymore as a nation. So what we're going to be seeing in the coming months, I think, is a very, 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 very lively, very, very fierce debate about this future security status of Ukraine. And we're going to see, I think, probably a bit of a divide between America and Europe on this issue. Great. Certainly the Russians will be pushing hard for no sort of security for Ukraine. But I don't see a situation where Ukraine will be pushed by the Europeans, at least, into an unfavorable peace. So short answer is the Americans will try. I think they'll fail to bully Ukraine into a bad peace. They'll have a lot of opposition from America domestically as well, because a lot of Americans are horrified by what they're seeing, genuinely horrified by what they're seeing in terms of Trump's increasing closeness to Russia. So that's going to be controversial for Trump himself in America. And in Europe, even more so, they don't want to see Ukraine fall. A, because it would be a terrible moral blow to Europe. But B, also from a practical point of view, if Ukraine falls, Putin then has the two most powerful armies in Europe under his control. He's on Europe's doorstep. It's a very, very dark day for Europe security-wise, and they know that. So they've got to keep Ukraine in the fight. So I think that we've got a lot of cards left to play. Ukraine has a lot of cards, contrary to what Mr. Trump may say. And Ukraine's security and sovereignty are absolutely key elements in the future of Europe's security.
It is great that you said that we have cards. It's nice to have cards, even if Donald Trump does not think so. Thank you so very much, Peter. It was again a pleasure. We do it again definitely very soon, and amen to what you said. Let's make Ukraine a steel porcupine of Europe for all our sake. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Goodbye. Well, that was it for tonight. My name is Emre Keen, and we are YouTube English, an English-speaking Ukrainian state media. And what we do, in a constant persuasion to deliver hard truth in easy terms. That's right, for the whole free world, for you, directly from Ukraine. In return, please like, share, and comment. Your voice matters as it helps Ukrainian voice to be heard globally. Meanwhile, stay safe and see you very soon. Goodbye.